Hey, hey, hey. It's Filter Free Friday, y'all. Listen, I am so glad you're here. It is nothing like the month of July to help you understand loving something and hating something. July is my birthday month. I absolutely love the month. I love the fruits that show up in July. I especially love watermelon. It is my favorite thing. Give me all the watermelon things, watermelon juices, watermelon and feta, watermelon just by itself, watermelon with salt. It is my favorite thing. And in my neck of the woods, you can't get watermelon other times of the year if you want it to taste like it tastes. And July is just hot. Historically, in where I live, July is a really hot month, and I like to tell people I was born in air conditioning. I don't like to be hot, but I can't have one without the other. And it reminds me of what I feel like this week. I attended a organizing event hosted by More Squared, and Michael Addy was the facilitator. And he's asked us all, did we have power? And I raised my hand emphatically, like, yeah, I got power. And then people started like not raising their hands and they seemed kind of tentative. And then I became tentative. And so then when he asked, do you want power? I wasn't quite sure. I didn't raise my hand that time. And that's because if the definition is having power of having power is you have the ability to act, then that means we all have power. But if also you have power and you do nothing, what does that mean? Or if you have power and people expect you to do something, then what does that mean? Um, I'll leave that with you, but I cannot stop thinking about Nolan Wells. You know, my son is 27, so it's been a long time since he's been 18, but he will forever be my baby. And what since 2022, I've been talking about empathy in a bigger way because almost everything that is worth caring about won't work unless you have empathy, unless you have the ability to step into somebody else's shoes, see things from their point of view. Even if you can't put on their shoes because it's so far removed from who you are, if you can just walk alongside them while they wear their shoes so you can get a better level of understanding, I think all the things that matter in the world are better. And what has been fascinating as I have been on this empathy journey is that I'm not naturally empathetic. It is not the thing that comes to me so easily. I have to work hard to try to see things, to understand things from another person's perspective, especially if where they sit is not where I, it's just not where I sit. And what was fascinating to me this week was just the number of people who heard about a black child with his white friends who ends up drowned in a lake, dead. And the very first thing that I saw all over social media was, why was he with those white people? Why did his parents allow him to be with those white people? You know, I grew up in Kansas City and I attended public schools. My neighborhood was pri- almost all black. There were a few other races. People have heard me tell my jokes about the cute little Palestinian boy named Rajay. He was in my comedy set because, baby. Anyway, I digress. Back to the point at hand. Then I went to matriculated through public school, and public schools are largely segregated. And then I went to a historically black college and university, 12,000 plus students. And it was a rare occasion, very rare occasion that I saw anyone else. And what I think is fascinating is that even with that, I have been unable to create wholly black spaces for myself. That is not a privilege for most black people. Like when I finished engineering school, where was I going to go work where I wasn't going to be surrounded by white people? If my son, when he worked on Wall Street, who was he going to be around? And listen, we didn't create this game. We're just in it. The number of times that I can go to a state and be with a client for an extended period of time 3, 4 days and not see any other brown person is the normal for me. And I am not judging it. I'm just describing it. And so I was surprised for 2 reasons. One, if you don't have children, if you can't imagine having children, if you can't imagine someone you love passing away, I can't imagine that you can't say, even if that's not my experience, let me imagine what it might be like to have a kid. And let me imagine what it might be like to have a kid who died. Forget how they died and say, what would I need in this moment? And land on, and what you land on is, why was he there and why were his parents so reckless? There are many things that I don't have the ability to control. But what I will always be able to control is my mouth. There are many things that I cannot make better, but I can certainly choose not to make them worse. And I just wonder sometimes what has happened to us that we cannot understand that when somebody is down, you don't need to throw a kick. Is that empathy or is that basic human dignity? Is that a leadership competency that you need, or is that just common sense? I end up in these arguments, and I think they're arguments. They're not just petty disagreements with folks who are like, to me, they'll say to me, that's just common sense. That's just normal. The way you thinking about that ain't right. You playing with me. And I'll tell you that while humor is in my top 3 values, I don't tend to play with people. If I don't understand, I'll ask a curious question. Sometimes I don't care to understand. I mean, I regularly tell folks, I talk about empathy and I need to be more curious. I need to ask more questions. I need to be better. And yet, it has really astonished me. I posted a picture of me and some coworkers on a trip. I don't even remember what year it was. It had to be circa 2014 or something. So 15, it had to be 10 years ago. And the point I was making was that if I am going to be part of this thing we call success, then I was going to end up in these spaces with white people. And this is someone who has spent my life surrounded by Blackness. I was not holding up a mirror to say, this is what it should be. I was not holding up a mirror to say, see, this should be safe for us. We should be able to do this. No. I'm saying we have convinced ourselves that success equals proximity to whiteness. Not me. Almost all of you cannot live in a country full of white supremacy and swim around in the white supremacy water and not get wet. The number of times that since I have started my own business, been able to choose who my clients are, that someone does not say to me, why did you leave engineering? Do you know what engineering spaces look like? Do you know that if you want someone to get to engineering management, to get to production manager, to get to plant manager, to be the director of operations, what kind of situations you're going to be putting that Black person in? They're going to be all white spaces. I am not making the news. I'm reading the news. Listen, it is laughable to me because on the one hand, we want to be like, oh, doctor, lawyer, engineer. And then on the other hand, you want to berate people because they did what it took to be successful in those spaces. I went to an all Black engineering school. And when that was over, why were there not more opportunities for me with people who look like me? I didn't create this system. And everyone who gets ooh and ah when they hear engineer, but don't get ooh and ah when they hear entrepreneur, are part of it. They're part of it. And so to take and have the unmitigated gall to attack this young boy's parents when we too are part of this problem, we swimming in this water and getting wet. I'm holding it while I'm also holding that we can do better, that we can be better. This problem didn't happen overnight. It ain't going to be fixed overnight. This is an adaptive challenge. Racism is baked into the fabric of this nation, regardless of if people find it popular to talk about it now or not. One of the reasons why I started to talk more about empathy and less about what it might look like to create a world that looks different is because if you want to create a world that looks different, you're going to need some empathy. You're going to need people to look at other folks and see dignity. You're going to need people to get outside of what they think, feel, and believe and understand what somebody else thinks, feels, and believes in order to even be able to appropriately attack this. Like the number of times I'm coaching someone who's like, I'm gonna just put my head down. I ain't going to the happy hour. I'm at work just to get my work done. I ain't at work to make friends. It does not matter what your organization looks like. If you take that approach, you're not gonna do well. You know why? Because people want to work with people they like, and people will ignore people they don't like, no matter how good you are. And I know what people are thinking because it comes up every time I talk to people in person. Well, Steve Jobs. Well, you should read some books about Steve Jobs. You should read some books about Steve Jobs because when he was on his deathbed, he wished he had done it differently. We hold up these people. And I ain't even gonna say nothing about the demographics of the person you choosing to use as your example. We hold up these people who have attained success. And what we mean by success is how much material possession they have earned. And we don't care about how much they've lost in terms of humanity along the process, along the way. It is both and. You know, there are many things that cannot be done without some kind of wealth. And if wealth didn't matter, they wouldn't keep taking it. And, and, at the end of the day, there are people at the end of these data points and these dollar signs and these decimals. The Nolan Wells story breaks my heart. I don't know what happened, but I can tell you from living in this nation for 50 years and spending my summers in Mississippi as a child, I believe I know. I don't have no data, but my heart says something, as I'm sure your heart probably says something, whatever it is. But empathy says, had it been you who ended up washed up on the shore of a lake, do you want somebody on social media with their Twitter fingers talking about why was he even there to your parents? Have some compassion. This ain't a leadership lesson. This is a basic humanity lesson. Have some compassion. And if you want to do a postmortem some other time, do so. But my heart goes out to his family. I hope his soul rests. Had his friends not done something nefarious to him, I wish them a life they can live with. Because no matter what happens forever, we gonna think something else happened out there on that lake. Because that is the nature of racism in America. It's both and. And I'm hoping that as Michael Addy pushed me this week, that you are doing something with the closest 4 to 5 friends you have every day to create a better world than the one we found. It's Filter Free Friday, y'all. We got work to do.